Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Renegade Operative here, and I'd like to introduce you to yet another entry in a series I like to call the Pipe Dream. The first episode was detailing some interesting theories about what I would want for a modern third-person shooter within the Terminator franchise. I wanted a game to be produced in that vein that had a lot more potential, a lot more effort placed into it than the standard on-rail shooter, since the lore for Terminator is still ripe for pivotal opportunities in my opinion within the video game landscape. If you like to see that video and how the first concept of the Pipe Dream began, then please by all means check out that initial episode in the description below and the annotations within this video. Thank you. As you can tell from the title, we aren't here for Terminator necessarily, we're here for Syphon Filter. This series was another one of Sony's exclusives that fell into obscurity during the last years of the PSP, as Logan's Shadow was the last game that was released. For anyone who doesn't know about the history behind Syphon Filter, it was a franchise created after the wake of the Metal Gear Solid boom. I want you all to be mindful of that MGS reference for later on, but anyway, Syphon Filter was a third-person stealth action game created by Eidetic Studios, now turned into Sony Bend, the developers behind Days Gone. What made Syphon Filter so memorable for the time was its graphics, the various assortment of gadgets, the weapons, and how intricately designed the levels were, and how the artificial intelligence really took no prisoners. This really shines out when you're tackling Romer's base in the first game. It's a flat out stealth mission, but the mission doesn't fail, but if you get spotted, there's an increasing amount of endless enemies wielding shotguns that will spawn after you. It almost makes it necessary to follow the protocol of a full stealth based mission in Romer's base without raising a single alert to avoid the headache of dying constantly. John Garvin, the creative director, once admitted that the first Syphon Filter game was almost close to being cancelled several times, and with the infamous Bubsy 3D on the team's track record, they really didn't have much of an inspiration to pull from. However, Syphon Filter went on to be a success and spawned numerous sequels in the wake of its popularity. Now, let's speculate as to why the franchise is dormant today, and what I would like to see personally for a revival, with a few key points yet again. Number 1, why is this franchise dormant? Why wasn't it on the PS3? Why wasn't it on the PS4? Why isn't it popular today? Well, this is a little bit of a spoiler alert for Logan's Shadow, so if you don't want the final game in the franchise spoiled for you now currently, then I would thoroughly suggest clicking off this video now. Are you gone? Are you good? Maybe you don't care about spoilers. Let's get into this. Apparently, this post from DualShockers explains from a former Sony Bend employee that John Garvin was personally burned out on the Syphon Filter series, and that the cliffhanger ending with Logan being shot by Renegade was a literal sign of his death and the death of a franchise. With the way this sounds, it sounds plausible given the fact that the cliffhanger of Gabe Logan either being alive or dead has never been brought up again or ever explained again in the official Syphon Filter lore. The greenlighting of other projects like Uncharted and Infamous just signified the fact that Sony as a publisher probably wanted to move on to other projects, since Syphon Filter supposedly didn't do well sales-wise later on down the timeline. However, variety is always key for success. The example is the fact that the variety of exclusives on the PS2 is what made that console succeed over the Xbox and the GameCube. You see, the PlayStation 2 didn't become a juggernaut due to small little headliners and advertisements like being the most powerful system. Sony had plenty of games to offer the gamer in terms of variety. Another example that will be akin to this is studios like Capcom pre-2000. They had tons of new IPs and old IPs that captivated us across the world. If John Garvin really got burned out on Syphon Filter, then I really don't see why he didn't outsource the IP to more capable hands, and with all due respect, I don't see how settling on a new zombie setting for this new IP called Days Gone was largely more original after releases like Resident Evil and The Last of Us. I do wish Sony Bend the best of luck on this new IP, however I do think that old IPs and new IPs can coexist on the same playing field. Considering how long Bend Studio has been working on Days Gone, I think they should realize that having more is better than less. Having more quality games is better than less content overall, and I think that is one clear reason why Syphon Filter should return. Most exclusives gives a better incentive for people to have the system and play more killer apps. So I would be a lot more intrigued to see what the PS4 brings to the table, especially with a Syphon Filter revival. key point number 2 is just some general complaints that I've been hearing from fans on the forums of other franchises, like people saying that Metal Gear Solid and Splinter Cell already exist, so does there really need to be a new Syphon Filter game? Yes, I do agree in the fact that MGS5 and Splinter Cell Blacklist has some amazing gameplay conventions that really set a bar. However, remember when I told you guys to remember that MGS reference? That's because Syphon Filter 1's timing and the mechanics involved in some levels in particular involved a small set of missions where you couldn't afford to be spotted, and a lot of people drew parallels with that in Metal Gear Solid. Now, John Garvin did admit himself that Syphon Filter was well in development before he even knew about Metal Gear Solid, so I do think that Syphon Filter can coexist in a world already written with Metal Gear and Splinter Cell. Now, for all the people making these comparisons, for all the people that are drawing these parallels, you have to also understand that Syphon Filter was more of a run and gun game. It was more of a third-person shooter with some stealth elements. I think that Syphon Filter the Omega Strain and Syphon Filter 2 had the most stealth missions in those games, but at its core, it's a third-person shooter with large street environments and urban terrain that you don't see often in the aforementioned games. Now, keep in mind, as a point of reference, the aforementioned games I'm referring to are Splinter Cell and Metal Gear Solid. Now, could some elements carry over from both of those franchises that could be used to help Syphon Filter in a big way? Yes, I do believe in the fact that some elements could be carried over to refine and give a better polish to an already insane amount of creative gadgets that Syphon Filter has. I think that I really like the fact that Splinter Cell had a lot of gadgets that you could use to scope out interiors, like cameras, and they had a lot of things like electronics could be disabled. They had mark and target where you could mark people and take them down with quick succession. So I would like to see something like that for a Syphon Filter game. I do like the fact that Splinter Cell Blacklist has a lot of options that you could choose if you want to make it a bloodbath, or if you want to be stealthy and undetected for the rest of the mission. Then the ranking system warns you on that success if you want to go in guns blazing or if you want to go in as a ghost. I really like that, and hopefully something like this could be chosen to make more of a morality perspective on you with your actions in the story. I think that would be really cool to see if you turn out to be a murderer, what will happen, or if you turn out, if you want to save lives or if you want to tranquilize everyone, what will be the ultimate end result and how would that affect the ending. And I think that would be interesting for a Syphon Filter reboot. So I know this video has been kinda long, but this is the last key point, and this is basically key point number 3. How would I want to see the Syphon Filter series continue? Well, if John Garvin is really burned out on the series, then I do think that he should keep an open mind and think about rebooting the franchise or outsourcing it entirely. Now, a reboot could offer plenty of design choices that could enhance the experience over the hurdles that Sony Ben initially suffered during the first game's development. This was a game that almost never existed if it wasn't for the persistence of the group at the time. The technology now is far more advanced than 1999, so all we know is that Syphon Filter can hold up if it was met to today's standard and rebooted for the modern ages. I think that if you play Syphon Filter now, you'll see that there was basically a myriad of issues, like the shooting. The shooting is a little bit finicky. You'll see that the character models and the graphics are definitely outdated, and there is just some annoyances with the trial and error gameplay. So I think that if they did refine the gameplay, if they did touch up on the animations, if they made that game look fantastic, as you see, Days Gone looks pretty good. So imagine a Syphon Filter game looking just like that. It would be incredible. It would delight millions of fans across the world with the refined gameplay, animations, and storytelling. Whether they keep Gabe dead or alive is their prerogative. Just don't think about being like MGS or Splinter Cell story-wise. I prefer if these stories are their own separate entities from each other, their own separate franchises. Think about the bigger problem of your past failings and how could you capitalize on them for the modern era. A grounded in reality story of conspiracy, terrorism, and states within conflict will modernize the plot backdrop with the risk of controversy. That's always a thing, but keep in mind that this might enhance your story if you make it deep and enriching. Mobility is also something the series should rediscover. Gabe felt a bit stiff in older games, so fast tactical precision with movements and equipment should be the name of the game for the new Syphon Filter if they decide to make one. I always wanted an action title where the time to think is crucial to a life or death situation in that split second, and it means that if you make a mistake, you'll die instantly. I like to see this correlated with the enemy AI and their reactions towards you. The headshot system from Syphon Filter 2 would be a glorious return to form with how dangerous it would be to move in the open if you never took cover. Some gadgets that I would like to see. Maybe some type of explosive gum, maybe a small pocket mini laser that could slice people in half. The return of the air taser would be fucking fine if you could just take that out and fry people like chicken in an instant. And some classic guns like the grenade launcher never goes out of style. I think they should revamp the multiplayer options that they had in Logan Shadow and Dark Mirror. They should also bring back some classic multiplayer elements from the original Syphon Filter 2 and Syphon Filter 3 games. Like you can play 1v1 against someone with a variety of weapons like air tasers, knives, pistols, M16s, all that good stuff. That would be pretty awesome to see. And I think that will also extend the longevity of Syphon Filter as well, because it always does. The multiplayer is a fun little romp to do after you beat those games. So for the last points, I guess I could say that I would love to see the over-the-shoulder mechanic come from Resident Evil 4 into the new Syphon Filter if they did reboot it, as well as I would like to see either Sucker Punch or Naughty Dog attempt to try this if they did outsource it, because Sucker Punch would be interesting, man. Just think about it. I never seen Sucker Punch do a realistic, grounded in reality spy fiction shooter. So that would be a very interesting task to see them take on, actually. I haven't heard anything from them in a while. The last release, I think, was Infamous Second Son, or was it First Light? It was one of those, I don't remember. I think it was First Light. But that was the last release from Sucker Punch, and I would like to see them try something like this. I think they would do a great job. You know, they did Sly Cooper, so I think they could do the spy thing, realistic spy thing, rather well. That's a really good idea, man. It's just hitting me. It's just hitting me right in the noggin. This is a great idea. And I think Naughty Dog is, of course, awesome. So I'm going to end it here. This is Renegade Operative signing off. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this pipe dream. Remember to comment, like the video if you really enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. I got tons of videos that are informative just like this one. I have also another pipe dream in the works, but I'm going to let the teaser take care of that for you. So remember, comment, rate, subscribe. Tell me about your feelings of what do you think will happen if they decided to revitalize the Syphon Filter franchise, and what will be your personal interests in mechanics, design, and gameplay. Once again, this is Renegade Operative signing off, and I'm going to give you a teaser for the next video I have for the pipe dream, which is taking a little adventure into the land of hope and glory. Take care.